stand up for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Just a couple little reminders before we get started. Our census is fixing to start for our state. That is very, very important. I was at a meeting this past week. They stressed how important that is. That's where our federal money and our state money comes from. So please, when you get them, remind your neighbors, please get that stuff took care of. Get it filled out so we'll get an accurate count. Also want to bring up that on 2/17/20, there was at about approximately 3 o'clock in the morning out in Tubbs Inlet, there was a distress call. 2 guys were out. We had our Lieutenant Klutz and firefighter Pollock went out there, got these guys, saved them from what could have been really bad, and we just want to commend them, commend the fire department. Thank y'all for training them, getting them in the right things. I know that from what I've heard, that was a very touchy situation, but luckily with the training, they were able to find him, or find both of them and get them back. Appreciate that. Also, we got a little thing coming up that I have put out there, and many citizens have reached out. It's about some roadside cleanup. It's gonna work on the Shoreline West, Sunset Boulevard North, Seaside Road, Old Georgetown, and then Shoreline East and Park. As soon as the weather warms up and the weather breaks where it's not so wet, we'll get it together. It'll be on the town website. We'll put up the days, we'll possibly be 2 times, maybe 3 times. We'll just according to how many volunteers, but we're gonna have that. And also Main Street is gonna be included, but Sunset Vision are gonna step up and do that when they do their other, out there at the island doing the different entrances and all. So that'll pick up from there. All right, moving on. Amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Anyone have anything?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Everybody good? Moving on to action and discussion resulting from the closed session. We had nothing. We just had some discussions. Nothing came up. Next will be our general council discussion. Floor is open. Anybody got anything?
I don't have anything.
Everybody good?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Ms. Jen? Okay, next up, our minutes for approval. Be our February the 3rd, 2020 first regular meeting minutes, February the 10th, 2020 second regular meeting minutes, and February the 10th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
I've got changes.
sir.
For the February 10th regular meeting, during the council discussion, I put out some information on GSAT roads that didn't come out quite as clear as it was supposed to come out. There were 2 points. One, that there are 3 projects that are being looked at for the future under a portion called Stop 3, and that is widening NC 904 from 179 or Old Georgetown Road to US 17. The second one is widening of NC 179, that's Old Georgetown Road, from Beach Road in Calabash, the Napa intersection, to 904 Seaside Road. And the third one is widening NC 179 Beach Drive Southwest through Calabash from the South Carolina state line to Beach Drive which is again the Napa. Again, those are road developments that are being looked at in the future. They won't directly affect us, but they will be in our area and have some impact. There were 3 projects that funding had been delayed because of NCDOT expenditures during the recent hurricanes. They've gotten FEMA money in, and so they're in the process of getting these things back online. One was a super street intersection at US 17 where it meets Thomasboro and P Landing Road. The second one is actually 2 portions. That's on US 17 bypass that goes around Shallotte, both the intersection at the north end and the south end of Shallotte. And then the third project is be a super street intersection at US 17 at Hickman Road. So there's a lot of construction anticipated in the future here. So that was just clarifying the minutes. The town clerk, Lisa Anglin, has these in writing and can make those corrections.
Anyone else have anything?
No.
All right. Have a
I'd like,
motion?
I'd like to move we accept the minutes as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up will be our public comments on agenda items only. Would anyone like to step up? You'll have your 3 minutes. At about 2.5, I'll stop just to give you a courtesy to let you know to go ahead. Please come up, state your name and your address. Would anybody like to be first?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rich Serrato, 517 Twisted Oak Lane. If there is one item that every council has agreed to in the past, it is not to use taxpayer funds to maintain private property. The Twin Lakes is private property. Not long ago, the owner of the Twin Lakes wished to transfer the deed to the town and used the excuse that somehow that Twin Lakes was now a major attraction. The council at that time refused the proposal. You have to understand, this person also sold lakefront lots at the Twin Lakes. And lakefront property is usually more expensive than non-lakefront property. The council voted 5-0 against this proposal. Using taxpayer funds to maintain private property establishes a very dangerous precedent. What is next? Repairing privately owned bulkheads damaged by dredging or rising sea levels? Repairing dangerous private roads because they are a major safety hazard? Maintaining every privately owned pond in Sunset Beach due to health issues? This should be a business decision. Also, I understand every year the League of Municipalities puts out a survey, a salary survey. They did last year and they will do again this year. I don't understand why there's such a necessity to do a survey. Our salaries compared very favorably to the last survey they did. I don't know why this is necessary and why this expense is necessary. You can do benefit comparisons with other towns nearby, and you will find that our benefits are compatible or more than compatible in other towns. I don't understand it. And also, lastly, and I have to leave, I understand there's a meeting with the Corps of Engineers Wednesday. It would be nice if the town could communicate that to the citizens when that, of the results of that meeting. I think would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right, moving on. We'll go to our town administrator report. Town administrator, Marziano.
Yes, sir. Well, first thing is, Mr. Serrato mentioned there's a meeting this Wednesday for the with the Army Corps of Engineers to discuss their letter for us from January. Our consultants prepared responses. They're on the website. We will be going there to meet and discuss and hopefully come out of that meeting with either understanding what the Corps is asking for, a little, what the issues are outside of what we've responded to, or some type of decision so we know where we're going. The hold up to the project currently at this point is Corps approval. Moving from that, I've mentioned the transition plan for accessibility to Town Hall and other facilities. I've almost completed the full plan. We will be updating it on the website. I'll be bringing it to y'all probably in April for you to do a cursory resolution to adopt, hopefully. The transition plan is just a way of providing more means of access to programs, projects, and facilities, and where we need to make our improvements and upgrades for people that aren't capable of, well, that need assistance getting, to have blah, blah, blah. Need assistance to have, take part in these programs. We'll be working on that, and that'll also lead into some other stuff for budget coming up. for some modifications that we will need to make to our buildings in the next coming years. Nothing's immediate, but we'll have to start looking at some changes over the next 2 or 3 years for some upgrades. For our budget meetings next week, on the 9th and 10th, will be department presentations. The way we're trying to do it this year is we will not be giving y'all a budget before then, but you will be getting some aspects of their presentations. I want us to go into this, in the past, we've kind of gotten bogged down in some of the weeds a little bit while they're giving their presentations and looking at their single budget instead of listening to their presentations of what they can add. So what I'm asking y'all to do is ask them questions about their presentation, ask them questions about just their overall operations, but keep an open mind and mull it over for, the week until our next budget workshop on the 17th, and look at it as a macro system instead of just micro departments. In the past, it's been, they come out of their department head presentations, they pretty much know what you want to kill and what you don't want to kill. I'd rather leave it as just listen, take it in, think about it, and then on the 17th, we'll give back the feedback to the department so they understand what we're looking at. But this way, you get to take in the full big picture of everything as opposed to telling the fire department one thing, telling the police department one thing, and then figuring out later how to make it work. So I think taking a more macro approach to the budget this year will be a little bit, allow us to make more informed and better decisions overall for the health of the community. But we'll be getting those packets out to you Thursday afternoon or early Friday morning about what the presentations will be entailing on Monday and Tuesday. Presently for the lineup, I know finance is definitively on Monday and police and fire definitively on Tuesday. And after we sit down with the rest of the departments and figure out how long their presentations look, we'll be doling out who's on what day after that. And if there's any questions from me on anything?
No.
Okay. Since the fire department's next up, I'm gonna lead in with something they've been starting to do. I'll let Paul go over it more, but QR codes are getting plastered on a few of the things the fire department does to bring people's attention to some safety rules and, I guess, social media outreach on behalf of the fire department. So I'm starting Paul's conversation off for him because I like this idea a lot, and I think it's gonna really help a lot of people figure out the beach rules and other things, so.
Thank you, Town Administrator. All right, moving on, we'll go to our department reports. Fire Department, of course, Chief Haselmeyer.
All right, thanks for the intro. The monthly report that you have before you is standard numbers of responses and so forth that I'll move along unless anybody has any specific questions. Mr. Mayor, you talked about the water rescue. Those guys did a great job. There was Ocean Isle Fire Department was involved as well, and some of the local law enforcement agencies as well. So everybody did a good job. We also had the night before a fire on Shoreline Drive that I updated you all on. So, and I know it was in the Brunswick Beacon too. So I think everybody's squared away on that. The chips that are coming around now, what we did with that is they're small ceramic poker style chips. They got the Beach Patrol logo, and on the backside you'll see a QR code. That QR code goes, if you pull up your camera on your phone or a QR code reader, if you scan it, it's going to go to a rip current safety video that we created last year on the beach strand in conjunction with a lot of what we've been working on with the National Weather Service in Wilmington. So we got quite a few of them. We'll pass them out as tokens or educational materials this summer. And then the QR codes that you mentioned already, those one goes to our Facebook page, one goes to our Twitter page, and those are going to be on the UTVs and doing some weather-related. We're putting out all kinds of weather briefings, rip current warnings, what's going on in the town, and what the fire department's doing. So another avenue to get information out to people. So, any questions?
Nice innovation.
It wasn't me. But thank you.
I think it's gonna be great for our public when on the beach. Good job.
Next up, be our Stormwater Department.
Mr. Michaud is off on his way to a class for tomorrow, up in Morehead City, so I told him he didn't have to drive after the meeting tonight to get there. But if y'all have any questions for him on his report, he's welcome to, he said, feel free to drop in or email him. That goes for the public as well. He's always welcome to talk to anybody about stormwater, so.
Good deal. Moving on next, our Public Works Department, our Public Works Director Dustin Graham.
I'd like to add that we've pressure washed the bathrooms in the park, in and out, the cover sitting areas and the picnic tables, and we are now working on the elevated wooden platforms that are in the park also, along the path of pressure washing them. Also, I shut down 39th Street beach access this morning to start working on the end of it to extend it out another 32 feet out towards the beach side also. And that's it.
Anybody got any questions for him?
None.
Thank you, Dustin.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next up will be our Police Department, from Chief Ken Claymore.
Good evening. Be happy to answer any questions you might have about the information that's in the packet. If there are none, I do want to point out on page 24 of the packet, the last part of our report, the code enforcement section. And when we took over code enforcement, I said I wanted to have a more proactive approach to make sure that violations in the town are addressed, not on strictly a complaint base. And if you'll notice, per the town ordinance, there's 2 times a year when we can send letters for noxious weeds and the like. And our code enforcement officer sent 199 of those letters out to tell people that they were in violation. After those letters went out, he only had to send second violation letters to 21 people out of 199. So his response rate was fantastic to get these overgrown lots taken care of so that folks that live beside them don't have to worry about looking at the overgrowth and what comes with it. So snakes and mice and what have you. So doing a very good job with that. I just wanted to point that out. March 19th from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. here in this room, we are going to offer a seminar on home security and personal safety. We've put that out on the town website. I believe an email blast was sent out, and it's on our social media. That's open to the public, anybody that's interested to come listen to our detectives while they provide some valuable information. I'd like to see you there.
Anybody got any questions for him?
I do. I had one question.
Yes, sir.
You have 4 items here that you have prosecution declined. Is like the financial card fraud, is that because restitution was made, or?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry. I don't know why it could have, I mean, that's one of the reasons that it could have been declined or just declined on behalf of the victim.
That's it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Chief, exhausted means what?
We've worked it to its end, and that there's nothing else we can do with the case.
Now that's it.
Unless we're speaking in terms of running, then it's a totally other kind of exhaustion.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up will be our Planning and Inspection Department. Our man Todd Rodemacher.
All right. We did have a planning board scheduled for back on February 20th. We did have to cancel due to a couple absences there. Hopefully when we get new appointees and some folks back from trips, that we'll be in good shape there. Talk about fence clarification, some sidewalk requirements, and the native plant species ordinance that we've been working on for a few months that I think we're coming to some resolution on. Have talked to a couple folks about a couple commercial projects in town, one next to the Dollar General, one, of course, up here, the old beach shop, which has been under contract and possibly sold to do a couple individual shops in both of those proposed buildings / renovations. Of course, everybody's seen the clearing's been picking up over there at Sunset Ridge. They were up there with ropes and chainsaws today, taking down some of the larger pine trees. They're rolling along at a good pace. I've only received contact from one of the neighbors who doesn't live here year-round, but came back after 6 months and was a little bit surprised, but not upset at what they saw, just more curiosity than anything else. Bill Clark Homes has been staying on top of that project and answering any questions we've had along the way. ERC met, they're staying on track with their projects, working on some of the things you all want to work on. We've scheduled a trip to the recycling center in Jacksonville for later on in the month, and we're going to check it out, the actual process, and hopefully debunk some of the rumors and myths and get to the bottom of some of those issues that revolve around recycling and report those facts back to the council and the public here in the future. Been working a little bit stronger on our CRS, or community rating system. I've worked with the library the past couple months, or this past month, attended training. We've got some of the FEMA documents now cataloged in the library that'll garner some more points for us. Been reaching out to the individual builders and surveyors, getting some additional information out to them. So when we go through our recertification process later this year, that we'll be in good shape, and it appears as though we probably will be. So, any questions?
No.
Like I said, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our finance department reports with our finance director, Tara Drop.
Okay. Sorry. The cold has gotten me. You have your finance report in front of you. Are there any questions with the report? I do want to point out that on this, for the expenditures, it is percent remaining. I know that that can be a little bit confusing on here. So we've spent roughly 58%. And just as a reminder for that, at the beginning of the year, we have a lot of expenditures, so it looks like we've spent an extra amount of percentage at the beginning, and then as we get to the end, there's also things that come in a lump at the end, such as resurfacing the streets. So it's not, the percentage isn't exactly even throughout the whole year. I know that that can kind of throw it off, so the percentages don't mean a whole lot, but it is on there, so I just wanted to address that really quick. But are there any other questions with the report?
No questions? Thank you, ma'am. You just stay there, we'll get you
Yeah.
ready. All right, moving on to our old business. First up will be a budget amendment for our stormwater and inspections department. Ms. Tara Drop will be bringing that to us.
So, last month, you all received a stormwater update and progress and where we were with things. And one of the directions was to see if we had money in this fiscal year to move forward with some of those projects, possibly. There is revenues that are coming in over, and unexpected revenues that we can use for that. So I can say that we have 159,000 that we could put towards that into stormwater, and that I've talked to John, and I think that we could, he was leaning towards doing Second and Third Street together. And then the department vehicles are for the building inspections department. They have a vehicle that needs $3,500 in repairs roughly. It's a 2007. They were gonna ask for it for next budget year. The Kelly Blue Book on it is around $5,000. So the repairs are almost as much as what the vehicle is worth. And inspections fees, starting as June 30th, 2019, had to be reported as being used in the inspections department. So when I do the end of year financial statements, we have to show that our building inspection fees are less than our building expenses, inspection department expenses. We had a lot of building inspection fees this year, so it's going to be very close. And in that budget, we also have the planning department. So I have to go through and pull out all of the planning expenses to get to what the building inspection fees, or the building inspection department expenses actually are. So to me, it makes sense to go ahead and do this now because we are so close with the inspection revenues being that close to where our expenditures are for that department. So that's why I have this on here for that. So that's kind of the explanation of the budget amendment. Are there any questions with it?
We got any discussions there on these two things?
Would you say once more what the guideline was starting?
For the
at some-
inspections?
At some point last year
So
in
in,
using the fees?
so
I
it
didn't
started
quite
a
catch
couple
that.
years ago,
Yeah.
like maybe 3 years ago, but you know, they give you a few years to catch up to their regulations. So starting at June 30th, 2019, on the, on my financial statements, on the audit, it has to show that our building inspection revenues do not exceed our building inspection department expenses. So in other words, we can't supplement general fund with building inspection fees.
So we have to spend
You
all
have-
the inspection fees?
Yes.
Within
Or
that-
it had to be transferred into like a reserve fund,
For the
specifically for the building inspections department.
Okay, so the point being, we have surplus inspection fees now that would cover the cost of the car, or the vehicle?
When I pulled this and when I started this in February, we already had $88,000 more than we budgeted for inspection fees.
And just so y'all understand, the reason that we didn't think about it last year is these apartments and some of the other construction going on, it wasn't planned. Far enough for us to understand that that would happen this year. So those windfalls, so to speak, aren't guaranteed every year. I can't guarantee this money will be there for next year. So I advise inspections to go ahead and see how much that vehicle would cost, because last year we pulled it out of the budget, hoping to get another year out of that 13-year-old truck, and it's just not gonna make it.
It's just kind of, do you want to spend the money to save something that we're going to have to try to get rid of and not, probably wouldn't get the money back out of too? I mean, that's the other side of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Councilman Nern?
that part makes so much financial sense. But I think it's terrible we're using a 13-year-old vehicle, especially in need of that many repairs. I think this is a good idea, and come budget time, I'll have a little bit more on that.
So does this amendment
So-
cover the surplus, or no?
No, so we have to, we'll bring back, so this vehicle will be surplus. And I think, I'm not sure what meeting, I think in April, right? We're going to try to March.
Next
So
month is April.
all the
No, the
departments
surplus
bring
fees,
us,
I
all of
mean.
all of the departments bring their surplus. And then we bring it to you and say, can we surplus this? You say yes. So then we have to put it out for bid. So there's sealed bids, so we don't know how much we'll get for this vehicle. So it
No, I
doesn't,
meant the surplus fees. So with the surplus in the fees that we receive, does this consume that?
oh, in the revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the first section of it.
But it won't
It's
consume
not
all
all
of
of
it?
it, though.
Yeah,
but
okay.
it won't consume all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second question is, so we're going from a truck to an SUV, is that?
It is cheaper, and it's something that they can utilize that carries the department head. But
Yeah.
he was saying that it would make
That's
more
sufficient
sense
for
for them,
Yeah,
less
wh-
gas.
What happened with that is, Mr. White's not here due to a death in the family. Otherwise, he'd be here to explain everything. I would try to do my best. They have two F-150s right now, and they would like to have one SUV in order to, for climate reasons, not to have everything loaded in the back of the truck, to have more space if they need to go to training. It's a more versatile vehicle for us to be able to use also should there, we'd be able to hold more people in if we have to use it during emergency operations as well, since they leave their vehicles here. So it's a more practical machine than the two trucks that we have right now.
So
It's
it
to-
holds
it's-
more people rather than equipment, I think.
Exactly, and it's to give them more versatility in the department.
Okay, I got it.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a
Being
motion.
said, motion.
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, this will be our audio upgrade with the wireless mic packs with lapel mics. Mr. Marziano, our administrator, will bring that out. Do we have any questions, comments?
As you just said, it'll be about lapel mics for y'all to use if that's what y'all want to go. Again, the reason we're looking at this option is the numerous complaints that we get that our microphones just aren't being picked up, our voices aren't being picked up on the microphones, especially as it's translated to YouTube. So if, we demoed the wrap around the jaw last year. No one seemed keen on trying it out or really having the desire to use it. These would be those packs with a lapel mic clip here. You'll just have to remember not to pat yourselves on the chest, cough into it, stuff like that. So
Or breathe hard.
I can't help that. This looking for options to make this better for everybody else to hear if they don't want to attend. The only other option that we can come up with is drop down mics from the ceiling and like boom mics for production TV. I mean, it's not economical at that point, but so if y'all want to proceed on this, there's enough money in this year's council budget. No problem, since y'all haven't been spending money.
We need 12 of them, Hiram?
It's 8, isn't it?
It says
There's
those-
8 plus 4.
Yeah, but under notes,
Well-
12.
Yeah.
At the
bottom.
Well, I guess
For
we don't,
public,
but
for the public to speak, is that what they will use
no,
as
the
well?
public will still be using
Okay.
that mic. I'll still actually be using this mic since nobody has a problem hearing me. I don't know. I don't know if this is Cindy. I know you were the one dealing with that. And was it may be backup components? I'm not sure, but I know I thought we ordered 8 just in case we need to have a replacement for one of y'all. So I'll get back to him on this one. But yeah, it's going to be less than this number. So if you're okay with this number and mics, it'll only go down from here if we go down to just 8 or 9. Because I think on y'all having to have technical difficulties and us having to at least get to 2. That's why I thought we were talking about the 8.
There will be a
apologize.
mute function on them?
Actually, I think the control receiver might have a mute button, so effectively you'll just have to mute it down at the battery box, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else got any comments? Anything? All right, do we want to look to this? Do I hear a motion?
Sure. I move that we approve the expenditure for these wireless mic packs with lapel mics.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up will be our planning board appointment consideration. And we have done an interview. We have one position open. We've done 2 interviews. So, what is the discussion? on
May
this?
I start?
Yes, sir.
Don Egert is way more than qualified for this position, based on his experience. And so I would move that we appoint Don Egert to the planning board appointment.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Don Egert on the ERC as well?
Wouldn't he have to be moved off of the ERC? Or wouldn't?
Well, I would think so.
Legally, you can hold 2 appointed positions, but I
I would think,
If
I would think we would want him to only have one, just to have more of our citizens participating in more of the boards and
Right.
committees.
If I may, real quick, I mean, Mr. Eggert expressed that had no problem stepping down from the ERC, I believe. Todd?
Yeah, that's what told me.
So, if y'all do appoint him to that does leave 2 positions open for the 2 applicants for the ERC. as a possibility as well.
Can we act on that tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2 applicants.
If you go down that route, one person has to be appointed to the position that was advertised, the other person would be appointed to the position left vacant.
But
Okay.
we only had one person.
No, we had
We had 2.
Yeah, 2 for the ERC.
You wasn't here.
Okay,
Last time we
gotcha.
had to leave it,
Oh,
Gotcha.
but I have everybody else's interview with it.
But if that's, if you proceed with that motion, that would be my recommendation, to pull him off the ERC and allow the 2 people willing to serve on the ERC to have those positions tonight.
That sounds good to me.
Make a motion.
You wanna make a motion?
I thought I already did.
Oh, you did.
I
His
move-
motion as amended?
Yes.
Yeah. I second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that being Don Eggert, go to our appointment.
Yeah. And that includes stepping down from the
He's gonna
ERC.
Resign from
Yeah.
that other one, correct? All right. Moving on to our next, will be our ERC appointment considerations.
And again, like I just pointed out, one of those would be the one that was vacant. The other one is now to serve the remainder of Mr. Eggert's term, which is, he was a 2-year, so the remainder of his 2-year term.
I'll do this too. I move that we appoint Mr. Greg Ackery to the ERC to fill the vacancy, and appoint Mr. Golding to fill Don Egert's position on the ERC.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to the next one, our Board of Adjustment member appointments. We actually had 3 candidates for this come in and be interviewed. Do I have any discussions, or which way would y'all like to go with this?
We have 2 candidates that applied for reappointment. They're currently on the board. They've been doing a fine job. We have 1 candidate who applied, who is not on the board, Mr. Francis Gorman. He also would do a fine job. We can't have everybody. I would like to make a motion that we reappoint Bruce Hovermill and Veronica White to the board. Say thank you to Mr. Gorman, and hope that we can find another opportunity for him to serve and participate in the community.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right. Now moving on to our new bid, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Ordinance amendment, number 6 on here, 95.007 Cabanas.
What's presented in your packet are the changes proposed by the attorney, finalized after last meeting's discussions. Of keynote is, sorry, real quick, on your packet, page 40, under Roman numeral 4, number 1B, where the separate attachment of the rules and regulations are adopted herewith separately, but still within the document. So the rules and regulations that will be attached to the permit application are adopted by proxy into this ordinance.
I've gone through this about as carefully as I can. The only question that I have is the penalty for cabana violations, which was in ordinance 95.99. Did we already approve that elsewhere?
You approved it last time you
Okay.
updated the ordinance last
Okay,
year.
so it's not there. It looks to me like the fees that we set, the rules we set, and the ordinance meet everything we asked for. I couldn't find anything that missed.
One question for me.
Go ahead, sir.
I thought that when we talked about safe, unsafe conditions, that we said that would be rendered by the beach patrol? Did we agree to put that in there? The unsafe conditions, that they would have to be taken down, which is D under.
Yeah, D.
Page 39, D under Roman numeral 3.
Right. I don't believe that there was a consensus to add it because, as I said at that meeting, Beach Patrol's responsible for this ordinance. They're the ones that would automatically do it. However, in the absence of us having a beach patrol, it'd be whoever was in charge of monitoring it. So if it became the police, it'd be the police. If it was the fire department, it's the fire department. So by hamstringing ourselves, by putting one department specifically in there, we'd have to do an ordinance amendment should that department no longer exist.
Okay.
Plus, again, as with all town ordinances, under the general purview of y'all to me to the departments. So technically speaking, everybody from me down can enforce this ordinance
Okay.
if we want them to.
Yeah.
It's
And,
just-
and we decided not to put a specific wind speed
Right.
in there.
That we
would be-
decided, yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yet specifically labeling it as Beach Patrol's responsibility, you know, like I said, in the absence of Beach Patrol, some other town official could go out there and do it. But if we specifically stated it had to be Beach Patrol, the police couldn't go out there and do it in the absence of a beach patrol or something.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just got one. How long are you looking at taking before you'll have a permit ready? How long does your office need before you'll actually have something where we can let these vendors start?
If you sign it tonight, if it's approved tonight, I've got a permit application already ready in the morning. But there's, you know, as with every permit, we give ourselves a few days
Yeah.
to review and make sure, but, you know,
Virtually next week, we could let them start, because
well,
I know in our future ones, it's gonna say like in November, they'll
right,
have that
they
certain
they
time. We
can.
need to set a time up for that.
Well, what I'm saying is they can start tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, the moment this becomes law, unless y'all want to put to be
When's
effective
gonna
on,
be the deadline for it? Don't we need a deadline? Because we said we was gonna have that in these.
well, I think at this first time, we were just gonna go until it went out because it's so late in the year.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna give them like a month, I mean, but
Yeah.
they should all be in here by then anyway.
Do you think that we should give a date, maybe 2 or 3 days later this week, so that the
If-
vendors all
yeah.
have the opportunity to prepare and know, and not have to stay up all night watching YouTube to know whether they're coming in tomorrow night or not?
Right, I was gonna sit there and, I was gonna sit here and recommend, like we did with the last text amendment to the UDO, an approved effective date, unless y'all really wanted to get going and make it tonight. I'm like I said, it can be as early as tomorrow, we're ready, it's just we haven't communicated that, because I didn't know if y'all would be,
Let's give them a chance.
Considering
I
some
mean,
more.
Let's
Well, I
move it
know.
maybe next Monday.
that's
the
fine.
ninth. That would be
My
a good
point
day.
being
That
is
way
I
we
didn't
got
know if y'all were
time
gonna be
for all of
rewriting
them.
this, so we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't set any specific dates.
Yeah. I
Right,
think
we good, y'all?
Monday a week?
The ninth, will be the
Is
first
that-
day they can do it.
that
That gives them
reasonable?
all equal
Yeah.
opportunity. That work good for
We'll put it
everybody?
out on Facebook, Twitter, website, everything, so.
And you, like virtually the deadline is gonna be the first of April, second week in April, what you think?
That's fine too. I don't think the deadline
What?
this time of the year is gonna be the problem.
Matter.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the
Well-
kickoff.
Okay.
All right, with that being said, do I have a motion to take these rules into effect?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And that's with
Is
an
that
effective date of,
Said aye.
effective date of March 9th.
Yes, yes, sir. So we'll put that out there. Did I mail you? All right, next up, we'll go to our new business, our COG agreement of services, 160D legislation. Todd, our planning director, is gonna bring that up.
All right. This is a request to authorize staff to proceed with the service agreement that was presented by West McLeod with the Council of Governments. As you all know, as I've been drilling into your heads, I guess, the 160D legislation will be effective January 1st of 2021. So all cities and counties across North Carolina have to go through their entire codes of ordinances and update it to the new planning and zoning legislation. What a lot of communities are doing is outsourcing this, so staff time is freed up, and we've reached out to the Council of Governments because we've had a good working relationship with them over the years with rewriting the zoning ordinance, filling in as planning director as needed over the years. And they've come back to us with a proposal not to exceed $12,500. We feel like we can reduce that cost to, that's the top expenditures. We think between myself and the town administrator that we can help offset some of those costs as well, and even look to split it amongst multiple budget years, so it's not a full burden on one single budget. But we do have to move forward on this and get this done in a timely manner, get our ordinances updated.
Is this dollar amount based on an estimate of hours that's needed
Yes,
by Wes
by
McLeod?
Wes with his previous experience with the town.
Yeah,
That's what he's basing it on, is the number of meetings it took when he served as our planning director
Yeah.
prior to my hiring. And he's based it on the number of times that he remembers having to come meet with the council and the planning board at the time to go through changes. I think this one assumes 2 to 3 meetings. But again, this is a not to exceed. We think it'll come in less. This is just as much as he thinks it might happen if it carries out past the date that we've got in here for August.
Yeah, we're in a situation with what he's going to be bringing to us is basically he's going to be combing through the ordinance, and there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for discussion because it's a lot of stuff that we pretty much just have to do.
It's stuff we're required to update, so there really shouldn't be a lot of back and forth points of contention on it at all. It's just, it's administrative, not substantive.
Correct.
these affect, these affect the UDO,
Correct.
which affects the inspection department, doesn't it? Can we use the surplus inspection fees against this?
That's partly where some of it's coming from. We've got the money in professional services partly because of those extra fees. So, yeah, essentially that, if you looked at an accounting sheet, that's how it would work out, but essentially, yes.
Okay.
But it's not all out of this year either. Some of this is still gonna be played out in next fiscal year.
Okay.
Any more discussions?
These are state requirements?
Yes. The state tells us what we can and can't enforce and how we are allowed to enforce it. So when they tell us we need to make a change, we got to make a change.
Even if we don't make the changes by January 1 of 2021,
It's still law.
we're still obligated to proceed that way regardless.
Okay.
The problem is if we don't update our ordinance, the whole ordinance becomes suspect and can be thrown out in court and no one has to follow any rules.
Okay.
Chaos.
You've convinced me.
Unfortunately, that's just how it works. We get our power derived from the state, so if the state says jump, we just jump,
So it's say yes or go to jail, is that it?
pretty much. The problem with the 160D changes is it rewrites so much legislation that there's no way Todd and I could do it ourselves and still do our day job.
Understood.
They've overhauled so much, they've combined municipal and county zonings under one regulation now, and it's a monster of a bill.
Understood. Thanks.
Anything else?
I'm good.
All right.
Make a motion for us to approve the hiring of the Cape Fear Council of Governments to update the statutes?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, sir.
And I would recommend those YouTube videos about the School of Government. They're enthralling.
Next up will be our general records. Heck, y'all excuse me, I only got one eye. Retention and disposition schedule. And Town Administrator Marziano, you bringing that to us?
Yes, sir. The state's updated the general records retention and disposition schedule. It requires local governments to approve the new schedule. And just like the last thing, again, this is, they're telling us to jump, so really don't have a choice in it. So we're just requesting that y'all approve the new record retention schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed.
Thank y'all.
Next up, be our RFP for comprehensive salary and benefit study. Again, Town Administrator Marziano, you're up.
What I've got for you is a draft RFP with one typo. It's not 43 full-time employees, it's 49. The 43 is a figure from about 3 years ago, the last time someone put an RFP together that I stole most of this from. But since y'all are interested, and have mentioned it, and this is just going out for RFP and see what the costs come back with. I've got in here a projected timeline for release of the notice, April 1st. Receive written questions by May 22nd, proposals due June 5th, evaluation by y'all on June 16th, and if you'd like to proceed, since it's for next fiscal year, y'all at the first meeting in July would make a decision, whether to go with someone or not.
And to be clear, we put out the RFP, there's no requirement whatsoever that we actually have to go out and do the contract.
Right, there's no obligation on our behalf whatsoever, and it's even written to the last bit of the RFP.
Yeah.
And you can take it, leave it, we're projecting a certain cost when we get the budget, I'm still working out some numbers from a few other places. I'm trying to get an average of what we could possibly expect, and, if it came in over that, I would certainly encourage y'all not to, and revise the scope or something to that effect, or if it came in under, lowest responsible bidder, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's no obligation to commit to any service from any provider.
And it is an opportunity for us to have a professional at least tell us how they would organize and go about doing such a study, whether
Right,
we
and-
decide to do it or not.
And this is, just to be completely clear, yes, there are ways for us to look at other people's salaries, yes, or we can look at other benefits, but this is a professional service that could comb a lot more people in a lot more places than us, and compare demographics a lot easier than us. And it's a full review of our compensation package per employee, per classification. And what's fair and what's reasonable, and if we're good, we're good. If we're not, then y'all need to also think about implementation strategies, should you accept the plan, if you accept the RFP. So even if we go through with the whole thing, there's no still commitment from the town to change anything it's doing. It's just still another roadmap that we could utilize for budgeting purposes.
One thing that I would like to have considered in the process of doing this is for staff to put together some indication, retention figures over
They're
the-
already working on that.
over the last several years. And so give us a sense if that's a motivator or not in the process of one of the reasons we lose people.
Well, also, and keep in mind that not everyone's gone through exit interviews, so some of that data is just gonna be hearsay.
Yeah.
Just so you're clear on that, but yes, everybody's been instructed for the department presentations to speak on retention in the departments.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else got anything? Go ahead.
Now, I have a motion.
Are y'all okay with this timeline?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
So you got a motion on the floor, we got a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, number 4 is the replacement of donated items at Town Park. Again, Administrator Marziano, yours.
What we have going on right now at Town Park is, when the park was developed, we allowed people to donate the swings, donate the benches, in memory of so-and-so or donated by so-and-so. We're at the life cycle end of some of those swings. They're taken down and maintained every year. We're just at the point where Mr. Graham informs me that he can't rebuild 2 more of those swings anymore. I did authorize the purchase of a Trek swing just to try it out, see if it would stand up better. It's also a little bit cheaper than the ones we've been buying, just to use as a placeholder when they take one down to repair it. We can still have a bench up, or a swing up there. But since there was never, is that me? There was never any thought given, into what to do when they're just done. So I've given you 3 options that I've been mulling over. Either we can just go ahead and replace it, about $600 for those swings that we use, and put the person's plaque back on it. We could seek, them to redonate the money to resupply the bench, and if not, go to another person, because we have people calling all the time that they would like to donate a swing in the park or bench. And then option number 3, where we basically go halvesies with them if they want to redonate, to lessen the burden on the person. These are the 3 places that I've come up with, narrowed it down to this. I'd like some direction from y'all. If you'd like to see, these are not budgeted items. It's not that it's horribly expensive. I just, these people donate this stuff because they love this place. They love the people that donate it in the name of. If they don't redonate, I'd like to keep the plaques and find a way to put them up somewhere in the park or wherever things were donated at, but, and give other people a chance to donate if they'd like to. I've had a few people reach out to me since they saw this agenda item that would like to donate to the town as well. So, whatever y'all think is the best course of action, or you want to mull it over some more. Like I said, I've narrowed it down to these three options. I just don't know which one's the better.
I sort of would like to complicate it just a little bit. We had the original donors buy it, and you talked about put the plaque back on it. I think if we sort of put in an option, if another donor came and wanted, well, first, I think the original donor should have the chance to do a replacement. But if, for whatever reason, there's difficulties with doing that, and another donor comes forward, I think we ought to kind of keep the old plaque in addition to a new plaque on that one. So you sort of have a legacy of who's been donating to that particular swing or bench.
Well,
I don't know how critical or important that is, just.
well, I think we should find some way to always honor those that have been so generous in donating items for our park. I think option 2 would be the one I'd support. But whether we put both the old and new plaque on the swing or bench, we should have some place to remember those first people that donated. You're going to have to come up with a place to put that.
I don't
I
know.
have no idea.
I've been thinking about it, either something memorial by the picnic, or, I mean, maybe not necessarily on the bench, but on the swing frame. They could be placed across along the top. Something like, I mean, you know, just thinking about that one off the top of my head. But there's places we could put them in the park and just do something, half a memorial wall kind of thing or whatever. But the point is, you know, I want to keep it. I also want to open it up to other people, because there's only so much room we have at the park for these swings, and we get asked all the time about them.
One question, what is the difference in cost between Trex and regular wood?
Well, the Trex swing was about, what did we pay Cindy? $400? $489, and the regular ones are between $500 and $600.
And the life expectancy of a wooden one?
Apparently it's about 5 years
5 years.
with regular maintenance. The Trex one, we put an extra sport beam in it. Other than that, that thing should last.
Longer.
Yeah.
So with that being said, do we want to maybe look at going to the Trex and then doing the thing where we go back to the people that have already done it to see if they want to redonate? And then if they don't, then we'll look at the other. But in the whole time, the ones that have donated, make sure that they are continuing to be honored.
Yeah. Which
That
is
sounds
basically
good.
option
Pretty
2
much
with
fair.
Trex. Option 2 with Trex. Yeah.
That'll work? All right.
Do we need a motion or?
Yeah.
Yes, go for it. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we go with option 2 to redonate or seek another donation for the items needing replacement. And that we find a way to remember the original donors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. I was gonna add it. And Trex.
Thanks, Joe.
In Trex.
And there's a Trex, if y'all want to look at what it looks like, it's not the same color. It's as close as we could find. The Trex one's all the way down in the park. If you come in where the picnic table is, it's all the way closest to the water. It's the closest swing currently. That's the closest they make to the matching what we had in the park. So we'll do our best to keep everybody's costs down, of course, moving forward regardless.
Okay. Next up is our Twin Lake Conservation Association request.
May I? We all received an email from the Twin Lakes Conservation Association seeking a donation or a grant from the town to help clean up the lakes and keep them clean. No one has ever mentioned, we've been asked, but no one has ever wanted to take over the ownership of the lakes. If someone says that, it's just not true. But they are a 501c3, so will come under our donation to nonprofits or service organizations. And I think we should look at a grant to help them take care of the lakes. And, well, we would do that during the 2020-21 budget as far as the funds go.
Yeah, traditionally, y'all do that around April. We look at those funds.
Um,
It comes out of accommodations tax for tourism-related activities is the money that's being discussed for those who aren't familiar.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
With these grants, is there any requirement that the adjacent property owners take measures to control the fertilizers and the things that contribute to all this algae buildup in the ponds? I would like to see some efforts made by that organization to try to keep algae, et cetera, to a minimum.
Right, that has been pointed out to an extent to them, but no, there's no conditions that we've placed on grants in the past for anything like that.
Could we do it here?
I don't really think so. It needs to be a comparable fair to fair to fair. The criteria is solely that it supports tourism, but that can also be a factor in either limiting how much you do give or not giving it all. The crux of their problem, as you point out, is a lot of the fertilizer runoff from the neighbors. It's also from the golf course. It's also just general buildup over time, just the nature of hydrology in the area. I mean, even our own consultant, we had him take a look at it. There's a lot of things that can be done for a lot of more money. There's a lot of maintaining measures that can be done for less money. But I maintain that, you know, we keep our bird watch there. We keep up the area right around it the best we can. People come from miles around. I've known people that said they came from Georgia because they heard about it, and that's why they came to Sunset Beach. They got to go to the beach and they got to see the beautiful wildlife. It's a popular enough for us to consider it a tourist destination for the town, and that there meets the criteria for us. But I don't think imposing new criteria based on a specific item is under our purview if it's not relegated to everybody asking for the same pot of money.
I believe their email addressed that.
To some extent, yeah. They're doing several initiatives that they're trying to figure out a way to fix the problems. But I agree with Councilwoman Harris's assessment that a lot of the problem is the budding property owners. They have some of the most luscious yards in town. I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm envious because my neighborhood's not. But, you know, that being the price that is paid for that type of yard is the detriment to that lake. So I just don't see where we can impose those conditions since we don't impose conditions on any other grant through the process. So that's
Yeah.
What's the amount being asked for, and is it a one-time thing, or are we
I
talking
haven't-
about a continuing support?
we haven't received all the applications yet. That's a different process. For this would only be a one-time commitment from the town regardless. They could apply again next year if they'd like. But I don't know what the amount that they're asking for. People always ask for some type of amount. The council gives whatever the council feels like giving in the past. So there's no precedent that we give exactly what's asked for either. So we give what we think can help support the amount of initiative that's being taken towards tourism.
The,
So, having not been through the budget process before, roughly how many grants does the town provide for things like this, and approximately how much money do we do annually?
I believe last year we budgeted 12,000 for, I think, 3 or 4 different groups. In previous years, the concert series was also part of that, so it was considerably more. The most I've seen is 15,000 for a budgeted year without concerts. Concerts being 10,000 in the past is what was given. So taking the concerts out, I believe 15 is the most this town's budgeted since I've been here. But also, again, it's tourism-related activities out of accommodations tax. There's no cap either. It's literally what y'all feel like parceling out for
And roughly how many grant requests do we get per year?
about 3 or 4, maybe 5. It's the criteria being what it is, that it has to support tourism in Sunset Beach. There's very few organizations that qualify or want to participate.
Thank you.
Is there some way we can ask their group if they're addressing, and I misunderstand still what you were saying at first, Jan, some way to address how much fertilizer they put on their lawns?
And we can ask, yeah.
We can't make a requirement, but we could ask.
Yeah, we can ask what other initiatives they're taking. And in their email, they gave off several things. They're looking for donations through Facebook. They're doing Buy a Fish program. They've got some innovative grassroots programs that they're trying to do other than asking for our help. So it's not like they're asking for us to solely fund it. Originally, they did. Since they've gone out and tried to figure out other ways to handle it, and I really applaud them for that. But there's nothing that says we can't call them in here and ask them to give a presentation. It's been done before for these types of grants. And this one being so specific, if some concerns are needing to be addressed, whether before we give them money or not, I don't see why they can't come to one of the budget workshops and give a small presentation about what other initiatives and efforts they are trying to impose on themselves to improve the water quality.
That sounds good.
They included some financial figures in the email, but it really didn't come up with a comprehensive look of this is what the costs are and how they're projected out. And
Yeah.
so there was no indication really of how much of their cost that they were estimating were they looking for funding support from us. So that at least that I recognized. I would like to see that when they come back in, we have if we're gonna give them money, they should give us a clear picture of their other resources and how they plan to expend it.
And that may end up being in their application letter. Like I said, that hasn't been, I don't
Yeah.
believe Tara's gotten all those in yet. But yeah, we can ask them to be a little bit
Okay.
more specific in this rundown. We'd ask anything out of the new nonprofit anytime you want to do for that. I do know our own consultants' numbers are significantly higher than the ones they've presented. So I'm curious exactly how much, ours is for full treatment of the pond. If we had the ownership of it, that's what I asked our consultant to look at when comparing numbers. So that's why there may be a little bit of difference too, but, I think they're
Yeah.
at the half range of what we would be expected to do.
The contract that they entered into with state management is $14.70 a month, and it's two treatments per month during 6 months of the year. They have a total of donations and contributions of $74.40, and their current balance is $10,534. So I think our grant would take care of a little more than a month.
Depending on whatever y'all decided.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, can we take away from this item that a consensus to ask them to come in at one of the budget workshops?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's enough interest up here that they'd be willing to explore
Yes.
further.
Yeah,
Brysons and all that kind of stuff, yes.
All right,
yeah.
then we'll proceed that
Any
way.
more questions about that? Not, we'll move on. All right, next up is our disposition of directives. Does anyone have anything there? Right now, we just have Actually, island parking is our discussion coming up on the 17th meeting.
I was gonna point that out for everybody.
Do we have anything else?
I'll be adding the transition plan resolution on the first meeting in April, which is the 6th. Oh, wait, what's April? 6th? First meeting in April, transition plan resolution.
All right, anything else?
I've just got a question about the island parking discussion. How are we, who's going to come up with a format and an idea? How are we going to organize this thing to get started?
I can do
I
that
mean-
if you want me to, but I was already, don't blame me. But I was already contemplating, since it's a regular meeting day and then a budget workshop that day, that following, I was still discussing for the budget workshop, we go into, for the island parking, you need problem identification. Y'all need to solidify exactly what the problem is. And then, once you solidify your problem, then we can look at measures of how to solve said problem. I believe the general consensus up here has been discussion of looking at a traffic study, consultant study, or parking study of some sort. I've been gathering numbers on that for y'all. And then move towards budgeting, whether y'all want to do this in the next fiscal year or not, and look at doing, again, another RFP moving forward, if that's the route you want to go with consultant. If you want to do in-house, it's going to be considerably different route of going. But the primary thing is problem identification. Because you've got people in the public who think there's too much parking, you've got other people who think there's not enough. So y'all need to solidify exactly where you want to go, because it's pointless for us to bring someone in and ask them to do something for us if we don't say, this is our problem, and these are the areas that we have currently that need to be fixed.
Do we have somebody on staff that's competent's the wrong word,
Qualified.
capable, willing to be the facilitator for that thing? I mean, somebody's got to think through these things fairly well, otherwise we're not going to get very far very quick.
Well, again, I'm sorry, real quick. Again, the question comes in, what do you want out of this meeting? Is this going to, the decision last time when we said we make this part of the budget workshop was, you're going to figure out what you want to do, and we're going to figure out what we need to do to make it, move it forward. Maybe not solve it, but come up with a process to solve it. If you want to go through possible options and public input and all that, then we're definitely going to need a separate meeting, because if you want to do that, that's the first step. And so facilitating it could be me or Todd. We both worked on this type of stuff.
I believe one of the most important things we need to resolve first is what is the carrying capacity of our beachfront? How many people can we handle at one time? Now, I know the Army Corps of Engineers already has a formula for that. However, we need, whether that be a professional or whatever, to help us determine how many people we can have on that ocean front without it harming our tourism.
You're talking about number of people, not number of vehicles parked.
Number of people.
And if we came up with that number, how do we keep it at that number?
Well, I'm sure there are experts out there that use these formulas that would probably be happy to share with us.
Okay.
I don't have it in my head, but I'm sure it exists.
But if we know the number of people that the beach can hold, they don't all come in cars.
That's true.
So how does that help us understand whether we have a parking problem or not?
We would have to consider that the number of people that are staying in houses are out there on that ocean. And then we also understand how many people can ride in a car. There has to be a way to do that. I mean,
No, but I don't understand how once we understand the number of people, I think it would be better for us to understand the number of parking spaces that we
I
have.
think that will relate to the number of parking spaces.
I think you'll find out that we'll hold a lot more people than we have parking spaces.
I agree.
But, so, I agree, I don't understand where knowing how many people is gonna help us determine the best way to move forward with parking. I'm not grasping that. I'm sorry.
Well, an example is, I have the rental over there. Sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's 4. The maximum's supposed to be 8, but I found 15 people in there. So, I don't think knowing the number of people on the beach is how, and how can we really count parking spaces except, well, I'm sure there's a way to do that.
Take the average car, you take the parking stall length of a parallel parking space down Main Street, and then you count the actual parking spaces we have. The parking inventory is the easy part.
Yeah.
The hard part's figuring out, is it too much, is it enough, or is it too little? And that's what I need y'all to tell us. That's what you need to decide before you move forward with anything.
I don't know. I thought a parking study was a good idea, but unless we're gonna build 3-tiered parking decks, one on the east, one on the west, and one by the pier, I don't see where it's gonna make that big a difference, and it's still first come, first served. And I've said this before, but I have gone over there during the summer and driven around, and always found 3 or 4 parking spaces. Everybody's not gonna be able to park where they want to. So, I'm not even sure a parking study would help.
Councilman Phillips?
If I'm not mistaken, we're not here to debate the
Right.
parking at this point. We're just here to determine how to handle this when we're going to address it.
And Hiram's gonna get us some stuff together, and then we're gonna go from there. right?
I've been talking to other towns, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I've talked to other towns. Everybody's done something as part of another study, but specific parking studies they're not that expensive in the first place. Especially with our limited inventory, I've been told between $8,000 to $20,000. But it's no 2 towns are the same, so, if you look at Curry Beach, they did their parking as part of their downtown study. Well, we don't have a downtown, we're not doing a downtown study, so it's not apples and apples when we're looking at other places and what costs for them and solutions for them. So my best recommendation is we hash out what the problem is and how y'all want to go about looking for a solution, if you want to go about looking for a solution. I mean, that might be the hardest thing y'all need to figure out too, is do we have the space we have and people can go somewhere else if we don't? I mean, I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's the reality of what you're gonna be looking at on the 17th. And like I said, I can facilitate if you want an outside party, I'll call the COG. But meeting facilitation's not gonna be the hard part of that meeting.
Anything else? Is that it? All right, moving on. We'll go to our public comments time. Do I have anyone that'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hardcore survivors.
Well, I had a vested interest. Katie Hovermill, 1429 Bay Street. One reason I came up was an idea for you, Mr. Marziano.
Yes, ma'am.
And council, for the plaques, I liked your decision to take Hiram's option number 2. What you could do, he mentioned putting the old plaque on the frame of the swing. So why don't you just put a plaque that says a swing was here previously donated by another person. So I like that idea. That way you keep it right in the place where the swing was, the plaque. The other thing is I'm a little bit confused, but I think part of your discussion just now was on how to hold a discussion, public discussion on the parking problem, meaning, or,
Not public, just,
oh, just the discussion, oh. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. But I would hope that, that you would consider, go back in the files through history and see, because this is obviously not a new problem. It's a problem that's been hashed over and over again, and there have been committees formed with recommendations. And as a taxpayer, I would be a little opposed to spending money on a outside study done in parking, because they're simply going to tell you that there's not enough spaces for all the cars that want to come and park safely. So there's just not enough space. Because there's so many people that stay on the island in the back portions, particularly, that want to take their car up to the front and be closer to the beach, but you know all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Katie.
I mainly just wanted to talk because I made the effort to come.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I was just listening to everybody talking about parking, there's no parking, the beaches are crowded. Now, talk to anybody else, there you have traffic craziness, people just, trying to get out, sea trails trying to get out. I almost got hit by one of the construction machines coming down the road. But yet our planning board just okayed 72-unit apartment and 350 townhouses. What do you think that's going to do for parking and beach and traffic? Period. Was that considered? I mean, I've been to about 5 or 6 meetings. Every time somebody's talking about parking, somebody's talking about beach. It's on Facebook. That's all you see and hear, people complaining. But yet our planning commission says, oh, yeah, bring 350 houses in 72. That's probably close, if you even say 3, like 14 to 2,000 people. Our population is what, 4,100, 43? So you just almost doubled it. I just don't understand how we get to, everybody's complaining about this, the planning board says, bring them in.
Do you want to maybe address what a planning board can do in concerning the
Yeah,
developments?
even though we're not supposed to back and forth. As has been explained here previously as well, if it meets the rules and regulations of the town, they have no choice but to approve, state law. It's not like
Town changed the rules?
they can alter density if they'd like to, but they haven't, so.
Now, who's that? Is this,
The council can proceed with that, the planning board could suggest it, the community can come pay for it themselves to suggest it. The issue with these were we had four projects back to back to back, is how that happened. I mean, there wouldn't have even been time to change rules in between them. But no, if it's in the rules, we have 0 options but to approve it. That's North Carolina law on land use matters.
as far as like how much water being used?
We're not,
This summer I heard that the waters were shut down because there's too many people using water in town.
well, that was a precaution as a stage 1 from the county. We don't control the water and sewer. Now, if the county had come in and said they can't handle it, they could shut down the project. They got permission from the county before they even applied to us. Because that's one of the steps that we have to require from them, is that they can comply with the county.
I was at a party and they were talking about Ocean Ridge. I thought they were gonna have call it police day. They were so aggravated about, we spent all this money for our lawns, now we can't water them. I just, to me, it's, it's great, you wanna build things, but we've had the property here since 92. It's not that I just moved here. And I have seen the changes, and a lot is good, a lot is bad. And if you want to put North Myrtle Beach of North Carolina, put the sign up. People are coming, and there's no room.
We have a Camel land use plan vision statement that should be adhered to. And that vision statement is that we want to keep this town as a small resort town. And we should adopt regulations to support that vision statement.
So how is that, if somebody, say, go public, something you want,
Probably going to.
You come in and talk to the planning director about doing a zoning text amendment. Yep.
That's what you do. I've done one myself.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. All right. move to
Refreshments?
adjourn.
Any other?
With the refreshments?
Is everything?
I stayed here all day.
Y'all ready to adjourn?
Is it?
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Aye.